great market share during periods of turbulence and uncertainty because they either make mistakes or stay on the sidelines. Crisis produces more rising stars and more sinking ships. As you look at where we are today, and I think everyone has kind of spoken about the fact that volatility and chaos is the new normal. How do you see the playing field? Do you believe that we're likely to see more rising stars emerge or more sinking ships?
I'd say it's zero-sum because both will happen. And Shireen, it's great to be here. I think this is the third or fourth time you've interviewed me over the years. I do think I agree with a lot of the prior speakers that this is a time of chaos. Most of the CEOs who have developed business models the last 30 years, myself included, I've been with my firm for 37 years, lived in a world where we understood the strategic rules, 1990 to 2020. Global, it's not global anymore. Technology kept advancing. We all lived through it. PCs, mobile phones, software going to the cloud, enhancing labor because we needed it. Energy and resources getting used without necessarily paying the implications of that, as the ambassador said, all at a time when capital costs were relatively cheap. So I think the starting point in the discussion is, and then you have the last 5 years, and people have talked about everything that happened. The rules of the game for the next decade will be very different from that period from 1990 to 2025. What they are, we can speculate. I do think it's much more post-global order, national interests. This wave of technology we're in, generative AI, could be not just enhance labor, but potentially replace it and work side by side. And the cost of the climate issues is coming to roost to some degree. And lastly, capital is not going to be cheap in this period. So this will be a period where companies that actually look at this as a chance to play offense, to make the bets, winners and losers will emerge just like countries emerged the last go-round. And this is a real chance, I believe, for India, for India as a country and for that set of companies here.
I'll come to India in just a second, but it's interesting. I want to pick up on that last line that you made. You said that this is going to be a chance where companies are going to play offense. Now, typically in times of uncertainty, the tendency is to assume that people are going to wait on the sidelines. It's going to be wait and watch. It's going to be pause mode till the turbulence settles, till the turbulence starts to ease. You're saying the opposite. Is this backed by the conversations that you're having with CEOs in boardrooms or on the golf course where they're telling you that, look, we're going to use this opportunity to play offense and not just defense?
Not yet. Is the short answer. So I would say and I've been traveling the world continuously the last few months. I spent a week in Brazil, a week in Indonesia, a week in Germany. I just came here from Singapore. I'm actually not going to the US tomorrow. I'm going to Japan, where I'll spend a couple of weeks. I would say the sentiment in the CEO community out there is cautious pessimism.
So we haven't really moved very much, have we?
We haven't.
It's been cautiously pessimistic for many years now.
Well, actually, there was a reasonable amount of optimism, candidly, Shireen, coming into the Trump administration. There's in the U.S. CEO community that I know well, an organization called the U.S. Business Roundtable, we actually publish our metric of confidence in the economy. And in December, as this administration was coming in, it was actually meaningfully above average, and then it came down in the first quarter, and it's come down quite low in the second quarter. So it has become a little bit of a wait and see. What will happen with tariffs? What will happen with the budget, the one big beautiful bill? And that's kind of normal in this period. Everyone, and you see that M&A activity has sort of slowed down. And so what I'm really asserting as people sit back now, a lot are literally just, I'm going to wait. And I think that's arguably a missed opportunity. A meaningful number are doing the things that I would call no regret moves, no matter what happens. Build a more resilient supply chain, cut costs, get close to your customer, scenario plan our business model in a different world. there is the small number that says, okay, is this time, as you asked Mr. Rosenkrantz, to be contrarian, to take the bets? And I do think for the ones who have lived through this and said, wow, can we make an assumption on what the new rule will be?
Yeah.
And actually build a leader and see that's I think will be interesting the next few years to see how that plays out.
I don't have a couple of $1 million, so I can't write out that check. But if you're kind enough to give us advice for free, what is the contrarian call that you would make at this point in time?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd call it contrarian. I'll just say the way the rules have changed from the global order I described is, number one, the global alignment, what bets would you make? You know, you heard someone say China. Well, right now, as we're all making bets in the world, India is showing up pretty high, right? Because if it's a great domestic economy, and it can take advantage of the shift on historically manufacturing going to China. We went to services. So where are the bets by country? Where are the bets by industry? You know, and where are the bets on the investable themes?
So would India be amongst the top 3 bets?
Yes.
Which sectors would be amongst the top 3 bets?
I think you can go through these major shifts and say what's meaningful for India. So electronics, manufacturing. We saw what happened. And just to be clear, tariffs didn't start this year.
No.
Right? The first wave of China tariffs were in 2018.
Yeah.
If you take something like electronics, at that point, China was 42% of the exports to the United States in electronics. It's gone down to 30. India didn't take advantage of that yet, as a whole set of global companies went to a China plus one strategy. It went to places like Vietnam, Mexico, etc. You know, that is now, and then obviously the tariff, the trade deficit didn't change with the U.S. It just shifted to countries. So that's why he's going after so many different countries. You know, now it's actually meaningful in India, and not just the obvious. You know, 8 years ago, 1% of iPhones were here. Now it's close to 8%.
Yeah.
And so you could say that's not as a contrarian. India's role in electronics, energy, arguably today you could argue is a contrarian bet, because as the ambassador said, 5 years ago, there was this peak moment in Davos 2020 when you interviewed me, and it's like the whole world was below the climate transition. The shareholders were, the investors were, the employees were, the customers were. Well, right now, it's not a green premium, it's arguably a green discount. But what do we know to be true? We know that the world needs more energy.
Yeah.
We know that India needs more energy. We also know that the energy needs to be clean. We know that the energy needs to be reliable because of global forces. India's had some benefit because of the Russia-Ukraine war, candidly. But we know because of the AI technology is so energy demanding that it needs reliable, lots of energy. And so you say, is that a contrarian bet to bet on clean energy in India?
Yeah.
I would make that bet. And I would increase the definition of clean to be very broad, right? Sure. Right now, the majority of India's supply is fossil fuels, but solar, wind, nuclear.
Yeah.
You know, nuclear is a clean energy. You know, right now there's only about 70. I'll use that as an example, Shireen, because while I've been here, I've seen, you know, India has some plans to say let's build 100 gigawatts by 2047. There's only about 70 gigawatts of construction going on in the world right now in nuclear. Half of that is in China. You know, 0 in the United States. And you were to ask me, is that a contrarian? If you say nuclear is clean, which, by the way, people say Trump is anti-sustainability, he's only anti very specific things, like wind for some reason.
Yes.
He's actually pro-nuclear. Well, if you want to say go long on nukes, right, which is a cleaner, other than every 20 years or so, something happens in 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl or Fukushima, and we all say, you know, but in the scheme of things,
You're saying the 20-year cycle perhaps for nuclear.
we would like to get better at managing it safely.
Right.
And, but at the same time, it is also part of the equation. So second idea for India is absolutely go in on. I would say the third major area besides electronics, manufacturing, energy is going to be technology, and that will be complicated.
You know, on technology, and I think everyone's grappling with what the world is going to look like in an AI era, especially in a generative AI era. What is it going to do to jobs? What is it going to do in terms of disrupting workflow? But what I want to understand from you, on the back of the conversations that you're having with CEOs today, I mean, to do AI is not an option anymore. Everyone's trying to understand how to do it. Is it still being looked at as let's pull out costs, or is it now being looked at let's drive out innovation?
It's a little bit of both. I think it's not just cost, it's process efficiency. You know, we're sort of 3 years roughly into, or close 2.5 to this wave. AI's been around for a long time. We're really talking about
ChatGPT wave
generative
of AI.
ChatGPT 3.5 in October 2022, and then we all discovered it in February. That's this AI era. And so what I will say, I'll take it from two perspectives. One is, how is the technology stack evolving? Because that has direct implications, you know, for things like jobs that you've asked about. We built a technology stack over the last few years in a cloud-based environment that had hardware, semiconductor, PC servers, infrastructure, big cloud farms, you know, software, all the way from horizontal enterprise systems to applications and then services to provide it. And that entire stack build winners, losers, jobs around the world. By the way, India has a big chunk of that stack at the bottom, the big service companies. Now the question is, AI is not just changing the AI layer, it's potentially changing the entire stack. Different kinds of semiconductors, different kinds of servers, still major infrastructure providers. Question implication on software, both building it and deploying it, the SaaS model, and then the services layer. You know, everything from BPO, designers, contact center workers. So one of the major questions in this wave is, every time there is a technology shift, you look for ways to take advantage for the company for productivity. And that's what everyone started chasing roughly in February 2023. And we'd say 2.5 years into that journey, most major companies around the world, probably not as much here, candidly, although we're seeing that this year, have been doing AI programs, use cases, looking for sure cost, but productivity, improved customer service, maybe innovation. And so now, having done all that, not that many are actually taking it all the way. And that's another contrarian bet. Will this actually happen? And obviously the second order question is, well, what does it do for all the jobs in this new stack?
Do you believe it'll happen?
Yes.
I do.
I do. And you know, most technologies, and we have lived through in our lifetime pretty major technology disruptions, and sometimes it just took a little bit longer. You know, and we lived through the mobile phone. We can have quotes, and still Steve Ballmer said the iPhone will never sell anything. You know, we lived through enterprise software going to the cloud, and it's just, that's not safe to have my data somewhere out there. This is happening. This is happening. And so the only question is how fast, in what use cases, in what industries. The frontline industries are generally all the same: financial services, consumer, some healthcare, industrial come later. And then the question is, as it happens, who are going to be the winners and the losers in this new stack? You know, and India's participation, not to take it there, in the old stack versus new is an interesting question, because you mostly participated on the services layer of this stack. You know, can you participate in other parts now, or will there be a new wave of services that this generative AI model So that's what we don't know.
Yeah, there is a lot that we don't know at this point in time, including what will eventually happen to many of the jobs of the present time. But given what you said, that at this point it's a little bit of a wait and watch, but people are willing and have the appetite to play offense.
Yeah.
What does that mean then for M&A? Do you believe M&A is likely to make a comeback? Specifically cross-border global M&A, where India could play a part? And two, the role of private equity. Do you believe private equity could end up playing the big consolidator?
Well, I think those are two related questions. I'll take the second one first. The role of private equity. Private equity has just become a massive. In fact, we don't even call it private equity anymore.
Yes.
We call it alternative assets, because it went from.
And all of those stocks were buzzing in trade today when the U.S. markets opened. So.
Yeah, because private equity is private equity, private credit, infrastructure, real estate, all with the major global ones also becoming public companies themselves. Yeah. So let's just acknowledge that it became a massive global class that is looking for places to deploy. And as we're sitting here today, a big chunk of the dry powder has still not been deployed there, literally trillions. I expect that will continue. I'll also say, you used the term in the prior chat, leveraged buyout.
Yeah.
Let's also be very direct that we've come off a 20-year period where debt was really low, and so much of the private equity returns came from cheap leverage. Yeah. And so with much higher costs of capital, and I believe we are going to continue to be in an inflationary environment, even though it might come down, and higher interest rates.
With or without Jerome Powell.
Yeah, with or without, but there might be some short-term up and downs in the long run where it's going to be a higher interest rate, higher inflationary environment. So the ability of private equity to create returns will have to be back to alpha, contrarian views, real value add at the level. And that's looking for opportunities all over the world. Historically, country-wise, private equity chased China more than most markets. In the last 2 years, there's more foreign private equity deployed into Japan and India than China for the first time.
Yeah.
Now there's a contrarian view. Maybe it's time to start coming back into China. So I do think private equity will continue to be a player, and how much of it needs to be global versus regional players, I think, is an interesting question that will come out. There are some places, Hill House in China, Investcorp in the Nordics, where a more focused national player. Your other question is M&A and international. I go back to the change in the rules in the global order, Shireen. If for 30 years we believed in global investments, global scale, global supply chains, global talent. So M&A today, really for international, I think actually goes back to international strategy, maybe back in the 80s and the 70s more than recent. Because if you accept that it's not a global world, you have to literally be intentional on country-specific M&A, country by country, not because you're trying to share costs across multiple regions, more local supply because of security. Yeah. And if you're an Indian company, it should ideally leverage your capabilities in India because you're good at this capability. You don't go into a new country, into a new product. There has to be something you'll build on. So I think it will be part of the toolkit. And this is probably one of the sharpest examples where everyone suddenly in this period freezes. Now, the ones that'll take, let's wait till the dust settles on tariffs, let's wait till the dust settles on interest rate, let's wait till the dust settles on government policy. Is it a time to actually aggressively make bets in certain areas because you understand the strategic logic? And the companies that'll win in this period are going to have more clarity on what their companies are good at and where they will be making their capital deployment investments.
Manny, we were asking Robert Rosenkrantz about his toolkit, so to speak, to live a fulfilled life. At the end of 3 decades of doing what you've been doing in the consulting world, what's the best piece of advice that you've got from a CEO? I mean, I know CEOs come to consultants for advice, but what's the best piece of advice that you've heard from a CEO that's helped you navigate your life?
You know, I heard a really good one about 20 minutes ago about don't disagree with your wife. But generally, most CEOs I talk to, what I find, CEOs are people too.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll talk business, but at the end, if they care about you, to have a fulfilled life, it's not just having a good business career. It's do stuff with meaning. It's have a good family, you know. And so make the choices with perspective, with that context. And I think if you do that, you know, I'd like to think I'm happy to be in India this week, but I'm happy to also fly to Japan tomorrow, where my wife will meet me, and we'll hang out for a week before we do some business. So life is good.
Life is good, and we hope that it remains good. Manny Maceda, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for joining us here this evening and for giving us a contrarian call on many things, including, of course, the new energy and the clean energy bet that you believe the world must continue to make in this era of volatility and flux. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.
For the Global Chair of Bain, Manny Maceda. Thank you very much for joining us here this evening.